The alien warship Vorik's spear drifted like a dark blade across the void, its hull gleaming with the cold light of a dying sun. Inside the command chamber, Admiral Karth Vizire lounged in his grav chair as if the entire galaxy existed merely for his amusement. Reports scrolled lazily across the holoscreens before him, planetary shields failing, surrender signals streaming in from one minor colony after another. It was all too easy, and worse, too predictable. Another day, Karth murmured, voice carrying the faint rasp of someone long accustomed to victory, another primitive world that mistook stubbornness for courage. No one in the chamber responded. His bridge crew knew better than to interrupt when the Admiral was in a mood. He was the Empire's hammer, the one sent when diplomacy failed, or, as often happened these days, when diplomacy was considered too much of a courtesy for lesser species. Karth shifted in his chair and eyed the new report hovering before him. Human Colony Epsilon 3. Outer Rim. Unremarkable. Some scattered settlements, resource depots, orbital stations. Technologically backward by any useful metric. The humans he'd heard had fought themselves endlessly over trifling ideologies for centuries. That they had reached space at all was mildly surprising. That they now resisted the Empire's demands for tribute was laughable. He tapped the side of the holo, bringing up the latest transmission from the Empire's diplomats, a demand for unconditional surrender addressed to Earth itself. Send them the standard ultimatum, Karth said lazily. One cycle to comply, or we remind them what happens to defiance. Yes, Admiral, replied his comms officer, a thin, silvery creature whose eyes flickered nervously across multiple screens. But they haven't responded at all. Not even threats. Just silence. Karth frowned slightly. Primitive species usually shouted defiance before falling to their knees. Silence felt wrong. Perhaps they lack the courage even for words, he said finally, smirking. So be it. When our diplomats arrive, the humans will beg soon enough. The words were confident, but somewhere behind his eyes, a thought lingered. Conquered species feared the Empire. They always did. Yet fear produced noise, pleas for mercy, defiant speeches, panic-laced threats. Never silence. Still, orders were orders. The diplomats would reach Earth in a matter of cycles. If the humans refused terms, Karth's fleet would burn their colonies from orbit. Routine. Predictable. The Admiral turned his attention to the forward displays as his ships approached Epsilon 3. The human colony hung below, a scattering of orbital stations glinting above a pale blue world streaked with clouds. No war fleet waited to oppose them. No planetary defenses activated. Just empty space, as if the humans had already accepted their fate. Karth sighed. Begin planetary sweep. Disable stations, but leave the population centers intact. The Empire will want laborers. His crew obeyed without question. Energy beams slashed across the void, severing orbital platforms in precise bursts of fire. Stations broke apart silently, spinning debris scattering across the upper atmosphere. No resistance. Not a single fighter launched from the planet below. It was too easy. Again. On the observation deck, Captain Raylan approached, her dark carapace gleaming under the chamber lights. Younger than most of the officers here, she had the look of someone who still expected war to carry surprises. Admiral, she said quietly, does none of this strike you as unusual? Karth arched a brow ridge. Enlighten me. No defenses. No transmissions. No civilians fleeing into orbit. It's as if they wanted us to destroy this colony. Karth chuckled, a low, humorless sound. You give them too much credit, Captain. These creatures are primitives. They probably think surrendering without a fight will earn mercy. Raylan didn't look convinced. She watched the wreckage drifting below, her mandibles tightening slightly. Perhaps, she murmured. Hours later, the colony lay in smoking ruin, orbital stations shattered, ground facilities reduced to charred skeletons of metal and stone. The Empire's banner hung over the region now, a declaration of ownership broadcast across the void. And still, Earth had not replied. Not to the destruction. Not to the ultimatum. not to the Empire's diplomats now en route to their homeworld with terms of surrender. Karth stood at the viewing pane, hands clasped behind his back, gazing at the pale blue sphere slowly rotating below. Something about it unsettled him, though he couldn't have said why. Perhaps it was the stillness, or the reports filtering in from other sectors. Human colonies retreating too quickly, abandoning infrastructure instead of defending it, as though loss itself didn't concern them. "Admiral," came the voice of his comms officer again, hesitant this time. "Long-range scans show movements near the Sol system. Ships. Large ones. Not like the colony freighters we've seen." Karth turned sharply. "Warships." "Unclear, sir. Their configuration doesn't match any known human designs." Karth considered that in silence. The humans shouldn't have warships, not beyond a few outdated frigates, at best. Their entire interstellar presence was supposed to be scattered, disorganized, barely industrial. That was what the Empire's intelligence claimed. He dismissed the thought with a wave of his clawed hand. Probably scavenged vessels. Nothing more. Yet his tone lacked its earlier certainty. As the Vork's spear left orbit, the alien admiral glanced once more at the silent world below. No distress calls. No retaliation. Not even threats. Just coordinates. That was all Earth had transmitted back after the destruction of Epsilon 3, a string of numbers, marking a point in deep space. No words. No demands. As though inviting them. Karth didn't like it. Primitive species weren't supposed to act with calculated restraint. They were supposed to rage, to scream, to fight hopeless battles before inevitable defeat. But Earth simply waited. The Admiral settled into his command chair, the faint hum of the engines thrumming beneath his boots as his fleet set course for the Sol system. If the humans wanted to make their final stand there, so be it. The Empire would break them as it had broken countless others. Yet somewhere deep beneath his layers of arrogance and certainty, Admiral Karth Vizire felt the first faint ripple of unease, like distant thunder before a storm. He told himself it was nothing. But the silence of Earth lingered, heavy as the void itself. And for the first time in many cycles, the Admiral found himself wondering if the Empire truly understood what kind of enemy it had awakened. The alien diplomats arrived in Earth orbit expecting fear. Instead, they found nothing at all. No fleets rising to meet them. No transmissions pleading for mercy. No planetary defenses charging in panic. Earth rotated below them in silence, a swirl of blue and white, unconcerned and unhurried. Envoy Calrix, high voice of the Empire, tried to mask his irritation behind the ceremonial veil draped across his mandibles. Diplomacy was supposed to be theater, speeches of submission, humbled governors, grateful supplicants thanking the Empire for its generosity before bending the knee. But Earth offered no stage, no audience, no trembling dignitaries ready to acknowledge their own defeat. He opened a channel anyway, voice echoing through the void. "People of Earth, I speak for the Vorik Empire. You have defied lawful order, destroyed balance and harmony in this sector, and ignored the mercies extended to you. We grant you one final chance to..." Envoy. The voice that cut across his transmission was calm, deep, and unmistakably human. No static. No nerves. Just quiet authority. "Identify yourself," Calrix demanded, irritated at the interruption. "I am Admiral Marcus Hale, United Earth Defense Command," the human replied. "We received your ultimatum. We decline." Calrix blinked, mandibles twitching in disbelief. "You decline?" "That's correct," Hale said evenly. "Your forces destroyed one of our colonies. In response, we invite you to withdraw from human space immediately. Failure to comply will be interpreted as a declaration of war." Calrix laughed, a sharp, metallic sound. "War? Against us? You are outnumbered, outmatched, surrounded. You have no fleets, no allies, no weapons that can challenge the Empire." Silence answered him for a moment. Then Admiral Hale spoke again, voice level, almost bored. "Look to your long-range scans, Envoy." Calrix gestured sharply to his aides. Data scrolled across his display a moment later, and the envoy felt the ridges along his skull tighten. A massive object had just translated into real space beyond Mars' orbit, dwarfing anything in the sector. Energy readings spiked far beyond standard capital ships. Cowrick stared. "What is that?" Hale's voice carried the same irritating calm. "That," he said, "is the US Leviathan, Titan class." As if summoned by its name, the warship emerged from the darkness like a moving continent. Its black hull swallowed starlight, bristling with weapon ports and launch bays, flanked by escort ships slipping into formation with mechanical precision. The Leviathan did not broadcast threats or power signatures meant to intimidate. It simply waited, silent and still, like a predator that didn't need to roar to prove it ruled the hunt. Cowrick felt his throat tighten. Titan class? That designation didn't exist in Vorik naval registries. Humanity wasn't supposed to have ships heavier than a battleship. Their fleets were rumored to be decades behind even the Empire's oldest designs. Yet the vessel before him radiated a quiet lethality, its armor gleaming with alloys the envoy didn't recognize, its profile all sharp edges and impossible mass. The human admiral spoke again. "Your Empire believes we were unprepared. That's understandable. The colonies you attacked were unarmed for a reason." Cowrick turned toward the holodisplay, struggling to find his voice. "A reason? They were bait," Hale said softly. On the Empire's command ship stationed farther out, Admiral Karth Vizire listened to the transmission in silence, his golden eyes narrowing. "Bait?" That single word landed like a stone dropped into dark water, sending ripples through his thoughts. Hale continued, tone maddeningly calm. "For 20 years, we've been preparing for contact. Not for peace. Not for trade. For war. We built fleets in the outer systems. Developed weapons in black sites you never detected. We let you see what we wanted you to see. Outdated frigates. Scattered colonies. Easy prey." Cowrick's mandibles twitched violently now. "Impossible. We've monitored your communications for decades. Your species was fractured, disorganized." Hale almost sounded amused. "Yes. We let you believe that too." On the Vorik flagship, Karth rose slowly from his command chair, staring at the colossal warship now advancing toward the envoy's vessel with steady, unhurried grace. His crew whispered in confusion. Titan class? Decades of preparation? None of this aligned with Imperial intelligence. Humanity was supposed to be a footnote in history, not a threat. "Admiral," one of his officers said nervously, "shall we deploy the fleet?" Karth didn't answer immediately. His eyes stayed on the Leviathan, on the perfect coordination of the smaller ships now sliding into escort positions around it. There was no wasted movement. No posturing. Just quiet, efficient readiness. It reminded him of hunting beasts on his homeworld, apex predators that didn't need to snarl before the kill. Back near Earth, Cowrick tried to recover his composure. "Even if you built this vessel," he said carefully, "one warship cannot defeat an empire." Hale's reply was almost gentle. "One?
No, envoy.
Not one." As if on cue, spatial rifts blossomed open across the system. Wormhole signatures, dozens of them, tearing silently into existence. More ships emerged one after another, sleek and black, bristling with weapons and engines burning cold blue. Each bore the same insignia, United Earth Defense Command. Karth felt his chest tighten as reports flooded in. Wormhole drives? Humanity wasn't supposed to have anything beyond conventional slip space. Yet here they were, deploying fleets across the system faster than Vorik ships could have jumped a single sector. Cowrick turned toward his aides, voice rising. "How long have they had this technology? Why didn't intelligence report?" No one answered. Hale's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "You attack civilians. Children. Farmers. Refugees. You thought we were divided, weak, primitive. That was the mistake." For the first time in his long career, Admiral Karth Vizire felt something unfamiliar crawl coldly along his spine. Fear. Not of defeat, that was unthinkable, but of the unknown. Of an enemy whose strength had been hidden behind masks of weakness and silence. On his command deck, The alien admiral slowly lowered himself into his chair, eyes locked on the growing wall of human warships now forming beyond Mars. The Vorik Empire had crushed 100 civilizations, burned cities across 1,000 worlds. None had ever made him feel what he felt now. Because this enemy did not rage or boast. It simply prepared and waited. The envoy's vessel transmitted a frantic stream of diplomatic requests, but Admiral Hale no longer replied. The Leviathan moved into position, its weapon systems charging with the slow inevitability of a storm front rolling toward shore. Karth realized, with a weight sinking deep into his chest, that the Empire might have just woken something it did not understand. Something it could not stop. Admiral Karth Vizier had commanded fleets longer than most of his officers had been alive, yet nothing in his career left him feeling as hollow as the silence, now hanging over the command deck. The Vorik Empire's armadas had crushed rebellions, dismantled rival empires, erased whole species from the star charts when necessary. Their victories had always been swift, decisive, absolute. But this was different. On the holo display above the bridge, the Leviathan and its escort fleets moved with unnerving precision, spreading through the system like a shadow crawling across light. There was no grand broadcast, no demands shouted across the stars. Humanity's fleets didn't posture or threaten. They simply appeared, struck with surgical precision, and vanished before the Empire could respond. Another shipyard destroyed, one of Karth's aides reported, voice tight. No survivors. Human vessels attacked, dismantled fuel depots, and withdrew before our reinforcements arrived. Karth didn't answer. He watched the icons representing his empire's defenses vanish one by one, each blinking out with mechanical efficiency. No wasted movement. No errors. It felt less like war and more like dissection. Captain Raylan approached quietly, mandibles set in grim lines. "Admiral," she said, "we are losing the rim sectors. Entire defense grids collapsing before our fleets even arrive. It's as though they know every deployment before we make it." Karth turned toward her slowly. "Perhaps they do." The captain tilted her head, confusion flickering in her dark eyes. "Think, Raylan," Karth said softly. 20 years of preparation. Feigned weakness. Letting us believe they were fractured, primitive. What if they watched us as carefully as we watched them? She didn't answer. On another display, fragments of human history played in grim silence. Images pulled from intercepted transmissions. Old wars fought across their own world. Cities reduced to rubble, fleets sinking in black oceans, mushroom clouds blooming over shattered horizons. The bridge crew watched in uneasy quiet. "They annihilated each other," one officer murmured. "For centuries." Karth studied the footage, the way humans fought with relentless fury even against themselves, as if war lived in their marrow. Yet somehow they had survived it all. Advanced. United. And now that ferocity was aimed outward. "Admiral," Raylan said carefully, "perhaps it is time to request reinforcements from the High Council. Entire fleets, not these scattered sectors." Karth almost laughed. "You think they'll listen? The Council believes this is a border skirmish. A show of imperial strength will settle it, they say." Raylan's mandibles tightened. "And if they're wrong?" Karth's eyes returned to the Leviathan on the display. Its colossal silhouette hovered near the orbital plane of Mars, surrounded by smaller escorts moving like pieces in a game whose rules only they understood. Every Vorik counterattack ended the same way, human ships slipping away before engagement, striking elsewhere with uncanny precision. "They already are," Karth murmured. Reports flooded in. Human fleets tearing through shipyards. Communication arrays falling silent. Supply lines severed with clinical efficiency. And then came the worst one. "Admiral," a voice stammered from the comms pit. "Our forward command station at Vorik's Gate, it's gone. Humans used kinetic strikes. No energy signatures to detect, no ships left behind." The bridge froze. Vorik's Gate wasn't just a station. It was the Empire's pride, the stronghold guarding half a dozen sectors. Its destruction sent a tremor through everyone aboard. Raylan turned sharply toward Karth. They've crippled our gate network. That means... Karth finished the thought for her, voice like stone. That means they can reach the core worlds. For a long moment, no one spoke. The Vorik Empire had never been threatened in its heartland. Wars were things that happened on the edges, far from the capital's glittering spires and decadent council chambers. Now, for the first time in living memory, that illusion of invulnerability cracked. Send another request to the council, Karth ordered finally. Make them understand this is no border skirmish. This is war. Raylan hesitated. And if they refuse again? Karth looked at the displays, burning stations, retreating fleets, human warships appearing and vanishing like ghosts, and felt the weight of a truth he didn't want to name. Then, he said quietly, the Empire will fall before they even believe it's dying. Another alert flashed. A human fleet had bypassed 3 defense sectors entirely, striking a munitions depot deep behind Imperial lines. No hesitation. No wasted fire. Civilian casualties. 0. Military losses. Absolute. Karth felt something unfamiliar settle in his chest. Not anger. Not yet. Fear. Not just of defeat, but of the enemy itself. Humanity fought like no empire he had faced before. No conquest. No glory-seeking. Just precision. A machine made of flesh and willpower, grinding through the Empire's proud legions with cold, mathematical certainty. They don't celebrate victories, Raylan whispered, as though reading his thoughts. They don't taunt. They don't even broadcast demands. Karth nodded slowly. Because they aren't fighting for revenge. Or conquest. His eyes darkened. They're fighting to end this war before it begins. The bridge lights flickered as another priority transmission came through, this one from the Imperial capital itself. The High Council, at last, acknowledging the scale of the threat. Orders to consolidate fleets. Protect the core worlds. Prepare for full mobilization. Too late, Karth thought bitterly. Much too late. He turned toward Raylan. Signal all remaining ships. Fall back to Vorik Prime. We make our stand there. She hesitated. And if they come? Karth's gaze returned to the image of the Leviathan, that silent behemoth drifting beyond Mars like the shadow of an executioner's blade. They will, he said simply. Across the void, humanity advanced without speeches or threats, dismantling an empire piece by piece. And for the first time since the Vorik had risen among the stars, Admiral Karth Vizier wondered if history was about to leave his people behind. Because this war no longer felt like conquest or rebellion. It felt like extinction, moving toward them one silent, relentless step at a time. The Vorik capital burned without fire. No cities had fallen, no fleets had breached its skies, yet every council chamber, every towering spire, every citizen staring at the trembling holoscreens knew the Empire had already lost. The war wasn't ending with a final glorious battle. It was dying in silence, gutted from within by precision and inevitability. Admiral Karth Vizier stood in the council's grand chamber, armor scorched from too many retreats, his voice hoarse from warnings no one had heeded. Around him, the High Council still argued like fools choking on their own denial. Some demanded mobilization, others surrender, others the annihilation of every human world in retaliation. They have reached our inner systems, Karth said, cutting through their chaos. Gate networks severed. Outer fleets gone. Your orders come too late. Counselor Mareth, draped in silks worth more than a starship, slammed a jeweled fist onto the table. You are the Empire's hammer, Vizier. Then strike. Crush these humans before they undo us completely. Karth laughed, a dry, bitter sound. Strike what? Ghosts? They dismantle our fleets before we see them coming. Every engagement ends the same way. Our ships burning. There's vanishing into wormholes before we fire a shot. Another counselor hissed, then sue for peace before they reach this world. Peace. Mareth snapped. With primitives? Primitives, Karth murmured, turning toward the vast window overlooking the city beyond. The sky above Vorik Prime glittered with the lights of retreating ships, not advancing fleets. Primitives who have defeated everything we sent against them. Tell me, counselor, what does that make us? Silence fell. Then the transmission came. A single human vessel translated into orbit above the capital, a ship larger than any Vorik design, black hull gleaming with a faint burn of atmospheric entry. The Leviathan. Its presence was not announced with threats or demands. It simply hovered above the capital, like a silent verdict. The transmission beamed directly into the council chamber. Admiral Marcus Hale appeared, uniform immaculate, expression unreadable. Behind him, Vorik officers taken in earlier battles stood unharmed, prisoners of war treated with a dignity the Empire had never given its own captives. This war, Hale began, voice deep and steady, is over. Mareth surged to his feet, rage blotching his jeweled skin. You dare. Sit, Hale said. Not shouted. Not barked. Just spoken, with the weight of someone who already controlled everything worth controlling. Mareth sat. Karth watched him closely now, studying the man who had orchestrated the Empire's unraveling with the precision of a surgeon carving out rot. No gloating gleamed in Hale's eyes. No cruelty, no triumph. Just the calm of a man who had done what needed to be done. You attacked civilians, Hale said. Destroyed colonies. Expected submission. Instead, you united us. For centuries, humanity fought itself. Nations. Factions. Ideologies. No more. You ended that the moment your fleets fired on Epsilon 3. Mareth spat. Then take your revenge and be done with it. Hale's gaze didn't even shift toward him. Revenge is chaos. Wasteful. We don't want your worlds burned. We don't want your cities leveled. We want control. Order. An end to this war before it begins again. One of the counselors whispered. Occupation, then. Hale didn't deny it. Karth finally spoke, voice low. And if we refuse? For a moment, Hale studied him. The man's eyes held no malice. That was worse than hatred. Hatred you could fight. This calm certainty felt unstoppable. Refusal, Hale said softly, would be unwise. Outside the chamber, the Leviathan drifted into full view. Its shadow drowned the capital's skyline. Around it, more human ships emerged from wormholes, surrounding the planet in complete silence. No weapons fired. None needed to. The council crumbled faster than the fleets had. Some shouted about dignity, others about survival, but all saw the truth written across the sky. Humanity owned this war now. Karth turned toward Hale's projection. What happens to us? Hale regarded him for a long moment. You will govern, he said finally. Not as rulers. As administrators. Stability matters more than pride. Collaborate, and your people survive this transition. Resist, and... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Mareth slammed his fists again. You expect us to bow? To serve? To live? Karth interrupted sharply. His voice carried across the chamber like a blade scraping stone. For the first time, he saw the Empire as it truly was, a thing of arrogance and habit, brittle beneath its own weight. And he knew Hale was right. Survival now meant swallowing pride before it choked them all. The council fell silent as Karth faced the human admiral fully. What do you require? He asked. Hale's expression didn't change. Disarmament. Access to your gate networks. Joint administration of key worlds. And an end to all imperial expansion beyond your current borders. It was conquest in everything but name. Yet no city burned. No civilian starved. Humanity dismantled empires the way it fought wars, precisely, efficiently, without wasted motion. One by one, counselors nodded, defeated. Mareth did not. He stormed from the chamber, pride outweighing reason, and none followed him. Karth remained. He looked at Hale's projection and said quietly, When history remembers this war, Admiral, it will call this victory yours. Hale shook his head once. History will call it necessary. The transmission ended. Hours later, Karth stood alone on a balcony overlooking the capital. Human ships drifted above like silent moons, watching but not striking. occupiers without malice, conquerors without cruelty. Raylan approached quietly.
It's over then, she said.
Karth didn't answer immediately. His eyes stayed on the Leviathan, that vast shape blotting out the stars. Finally, he said, "No, it's beginning." Beginning? Karth's mandibles tightened. The Vorik ruled through fear. The humans will rule through something worse. Efficiency. Purpose. They don't celebrate this victory because it isn't the end for them. It's the start of whatever comes next. He turned from the balcony, the weight of survival heavy on his shoulders. Administrator. Collaborator. History would call him both before the end. Above, the Leviathan moved silently through Vorik skies, herald of a new order rising from the Empire's ashes. Humanity had not come for vengeance. They had come for the future.